Welcome back to another episode of What's New in Beauty. My name is Nia Lee, and I'm super excited to have you guys here. If it's your first time tuning in, this is essentially the beauty podcast where I love to talk about all new and exciting things happening in the beauty industry, and of course, give my 2 cents on it. Now, I want to just jump right in because this news actually just came to me fairly, pretty much today, and it's all about Dame, essentially the sexual wellness brand, launching at-home STI kits. Now, I'm just going to repeat that again so you fully hear exactly what I'm saying. Dame launched at-home STI kits. Now, this is really taking sexual health and sexual wellness to a whole new level. And I've talked about Dame before, or I've talked about similar brands like Mod before, and just other brands that when they are speaking about sexual health and sexual wellness and just the overarching of what that looks like, especially from the perspective of women and exactly what that entails, they never, excuse my language, pussyfoot around it. And they really like to get to the actual root of what's going on, particularly in sexual wellness, but also from the standpoint of, again, who their main target customer base is. And it doesn't necessarily specifically say here if it's particularly for men or women. I do think it's just overarching altogether for both. But talking a little bit more about it from WWD, they pretty much outlined everything that entails with this STI kit, and it's fairly curated and it's stunning, and it has their Dame branding, of course, their signature branding, and it looks different. It doesn't feel super duper clinical, which I do like as well. And a shout out to Dame for just, again, giving a whole new look at what sexual wellness looks like from their end. But according to WWE, essentially, sexual wellness brand Dame is launching their at-home test for sexually transmitted infections. The brand, known for its sexual wellness devices and topicals, is moving into the health space with 4 STI kits, which are available on the brand site. And they essentially include tests for gonorrhea and chlamydia, HIV, syphilis, and they also have, these are the different kits. So tests include gonorrhea and chlamydia and HIV and syphilis, STI kit number 1. They've also got a gonorrhea and chlamydia, HIV, syphilis, STI kit, another one. And they've got different kits as well here, and they all kind of, again, fall into the kind of the same, space. But what I think is really interesting about this just all together is that these can also be used on the mouth and the rectum, which, again, when we're thinking about STI kits, typically, I don't know if you guys have ever gotten those tests. If you haven't, please make sure that you do, or again, check out Dame. But there's obviously different ways that you can go about actually testing for it, and I'm glad that they actually included both. So essentially, after purchasing the kits, users will take the test at home, ship it to a lab, and then will receive virtual results, and a doctor will call when they actually test positive, which is very similar to if you were going to do any sort of test when you go to the doctor's office. I don't know about y'all, but long gone are the days, even when doctors are telling you to come in to discuss those results for you, they're actually literally giving you those results virtually. I actually went to go do a blood test recently, and I think I actually went to go do an STI test as well, just to kind of make sure that everything was good. And they essentially gave me, I think it was a blood test, or it was some sort of test that I ended up doing. Anywho, all of that stuff is very much virtual, but they literally gave me a peel off sticker with my number that they got from a computer to say, hey, here's the link, here's where you need to go, make sure you type that in, and you're solid, and those are your results. And I don't know 1,000% how I feel about that. I don't typically, I don't go to the doctor as much. I actually ended up getting a family doctor again last year, which is I haven't had a family doctor for years, but I just didn't know how much of the medical industry became a lot more hands-off. And it's particularly when you're talking about things like tests and blood work and, STI tests and certain things like that. I don't know. I guess I'm looking for a little bit more care, and I'm looking for a little bit more, personability or personality, or whatever the word I'm trying to say. I'm hoping for it to be more of a personable experience, but not everything's virtual now. And I guess that's just the way of where the industry is going, which, again, you can have your opinions on those things. But what I think is really, really interesting altogether about this is essentially what the founder, Alexandra Fine, actually said. So she said, to me, Dame is a sexual health brand. Sexual pleasure is a part of healthy sex, getting to expand the line so that essentially becomes more obvious simply by seeing our product offering has been the plan from day one. She also continues and says, one time we did a study to see how people define sexual wellness versus sexual health, and we have consistently seen the same definition. People actually didn't see them as a difference. And she essentially has been working on bringing these kits to market for several years, but finding the right partner was always difficult. She also states, there are all these small parts of the physical experience that create safety for you. The other big thing for me was their lab's ability to do multiple collection sites like blood and urine. So again, they've been partnering with Ash Wellness for years, doing research, making sure they're actually taking the time to, find an actual company that works best for them. So them partnering with Ash Wellness has, been a really feasible partnership. They're actually an at-home diagnostic testing company that has more than 10 labs across the US that service the test to ensure an efficient turnaround time. And they also say, while the brand hasn't received significant requests for STI tests, Fine said consumers are often seeking safe sex resources, indicating the need. Furthermore, she expects the launch to bring in additional requests for sexual health offerings going forward, and then continues. Now that we started making supplements, people ask for different supplements. We have to show that we're capable of it, and then people will come and start seeing it, which I think is really, really important, because when you launch a brand, and I say this to pretty much anybody that will listen, when you launch a brand, it's always great to just launch typically with one thing and focus on that one thing. And then what happens is, you're going to slowly but surely start to put those things out into the world. And your community is going to come and they're going to either love it or hate it or have an opinion about it, whatever the case may be. But you're going to start building a community of people who are going to start, liking what you do and then eventually buying your products. Putting things out into the ether, I think, is a really great thing, especially because if you're bringing something different to market or giving a different approach, I think is always great. But from then, what you're going to have is you're actually going to have people who love what you do so well, that one thing that you do so well, that one product that you have that's awesome. And then they're going to start asking you for different things. And that is really a testament to what you have been able to do really well for that one period of time. And so I think along the lines of different things that Dame has put out, they've obviously been able to build a community of thousands. And I'm actually going to go to their exact following so I can find it. Over 100,000, this is only on Instagram, 100,000 of people and followers who are tapped into that brand. And so now they're actually looking at this launch as an opportunity to bring in new customers, because they actually state that 70% of their demographic, of their customers' demographic or the brand's demographic are actually in long-term relationships. And they've been able to do different things as well with other young customers as well too. But now they're really looking to kind of bring in this new customer base, which I think is, again, a risk, but I think it all falls in line of who Dame is. And I've said this just even in passing, because Dame is one of those brands to me that doesn't do things pretentiously. Like, there are a lot of brands that will talk about wellness and sexual health and sexual wellness just for buzzwords or to be kitschy or whatever it might be. But Dame really feels like they're in it for the long haul. And that could be a testament to their founder, Alexandra, or it could just be a testament to them understanding that this has to be more than just us selling supplements or us selling actual, sexual toys or anything that we're doing. It's got to be more than that. So the fact that they're even getting in this space of health, which I think is very commendable, but also a risk, because there aren't too many particularly sexual health brands. And there are, because I've definitely seen them pop up, but the sexual health, the sexual wellness space has yet to almost feel like, sometimes it can feel extra gimmicky, and I'm not the biggest fan of that sometimes, because it's just like, this is still a serious thing. Like, sure, yes, sex sells, but we also have to take things seriously. To me, Dame has never ever felt performative. They always feel like everything they do is very tailored and very, specific to their community, and also being real and genuine and honest with their community, and making sexual health and sexual wellness a normal thing that we're able to talk about without anybody giving it a weird vibe or being like, oh, this is not something we shouldn't be talking about, when it's like, yeah, these are things that we should actually be talking about. Why aren't there more kits, right? Why aren't there more opportunities for people to actually, test for these diseases or these infections, when these are actual things that are happening to people on a regular basis? I don't know the exact stats. I'm sure, they differ depending on men and women, but STIs, STDs are still here. People are still having sex. People are still doing what they got to do. And these are things that are in today's current climate, right? And I'm not going to get into, what the medical world and, the health industry, what their goals are and X, Y, and Z. But I personally like to see just brands say, hey, we're just going to do this. And we know we're going to obviously have different parts of our community, our audience that are going to love this. But also this is an opportunity to bring in more people, because now this is also going to put Dame into a different conversation, because now when you go to the drugstore, you go to CVS, you go to, I don't know, you go to Shoppers, you go to Ulta, you go to wherever it is that you go, Rite Aid, you're going to be seeing these tests there, and you're going to say to yourself, oh, this looks different, this looks approachable, versus sometimes the other products on the market, certain kits and certain things. Like even look at Plan B. I know Plan B has slowly but surely becoming a lot more prevalent, and also there's been different brands taking different stabs about what Plan B looks like and certain things like that. And this is across the board. There's just different brands that are reinventing how things look and aesthetic and all that good stuff. But now you see a brand like Dame, who you might be familiar with because of what they've been able to do. Like they had that whole censorship. I don't know if it was a suit, but it was essentially a censorship situation where they actually couldn't have their billboards on subways, and it caused a whole bunch of controversy. And I honestly think that's honestly what drew people to the brand right away, because they were actually speaking up about the fact that, they can have all these different billboards and, all these other brands can do different things, but we can't be honest and open about sexual health and sexual wellness. Like, you got to be kidding me. But what I think was really, admirable is that they stuck to that. And I believe they actually ended up winning the case or the suit or, whatever ended up happening. And it brought more of a spotlight onto them. But I also think it speaks to who they are as a brand about actually wanting to make a change and wanting these things to actually be conversational piece and also accessible as well, too. And so all in all, I'm just really excited about this. One, just for the grand scheme of just changing that industry. And, even again, Alexandra speaks to, people looking at them as, almost the same when they're really not. I think that's also really interesting as well, too. And I know I've been using them interchangeably, but that seems to be Dame's main focus is let's talk sexual health, but let's also talk sexual wellness. We can do both things, right? Health and wellness can be obviously interchangeable, but they are different things for the most part. And let's actually give a product or a solution for this particular thing while we're over here selling the other side of it as well, too. Like make sure that you are tested and you're healthy when you're dealing with sex or with partners or in your relationship, but you can also deal with other things as well, too, or have fun with sex as well. So I love that Dame is giving both of those opportunities. Again, Alexandra speaks here and says there are so many barriers to pleasure, and in order to help people access pleasure, in order to close the pleasure gap, it has always felt foundational to do more health products. So I'm excited to see what more health products come in the line of Dame. I can totally see them maybe even launching some sort of version of Plan B or some sort of contraceptive. I don't know if they sell like any condoms or anything like that, but I could totally see them going ahead with that as well too. I just think I spoke about this. I think I maybe did a video on Instagram about it, but just how wellness has just opened up the floodgates for so much conversation about all areas of wellness, right? Physical, mental, spiritual, sexual, just all these different areas of health that I think is really, really important that we haven't really been tapped into all the way, because not for nothing, sexual health, sexual wellness, any of that stuff, especially where women are very centered and we're taking agency over ourselves, have almost kind of been shunned or something that we shouldn't be talking about. So I love that Dame, regardless of, the journey or the uphill battle that they've been having to deal with, they have consistently said, well, this is the space that we want to get into, and this is what we actually want to do. We're getting in with vibrators, or we're getting in with other things like supplements and serums and candles and whatnot, and really, of course, accompanying that wellness space. But let's actually talk about the health side of things, because that's actually the stuff that is actually a lot more prevalent now more than ever. And so shout out to Dame. I love that. I think it's super dope. And of course, if any of you guys try it out or see it out in the wild, DM me, tag me, Socially Savvy Nia on all platforms, as I would love to see it. Now, as we're talking about beauty trends and wellness and all that good stuff, and just the way that the industry is slowly but surely changing, I've been seeing a lot of reports and certain things come up about different trends and all these trends that are going to be for 2024, because you know how they love to do a little bit of trend spotting. Even though the trend spotting stuff that comes from different articles and different things I've been reading, they've all been pretty much trends that have already existed in some way, shape, or form. They're just kind of tweaking things here and there. So one of the trends that I saw, or that have been a talking point for 2024, is generative AI and personalization amongst beauty tech. So this industry, the industry.beauty, actually put out a blog post talking about how this is essentially what is going to be the consumer experience for 2024 and beyond. And they speak about Revive, which is a technology company delivering hyper-personalized beauty experiences for global brands and retailers powered by AI and AR. So, and if you don't know, AI, artificial intelligence, AR, augmented reality. So AI is similar to ChatGPT, or things kind of, essentially like figuring out what it is that you essentially like by you adding in like a couple keywords or a couple prompts, so that you're able to then get maybe a whole routine, or you're able to do you're able to do a quiz, and you're able to get an entire, a step-by-step routine or of product listing of things that you need. AR is a little bit different in the sense that it's actually allowing you to be in this reality of the products that you want. So for example, when you go on Instagram and you try out a lipstick filter, or you try out a lash filter, let's just say, before you actually go ahead and buy the product, but it's the same product that you would essentially be using or wearing. It's just, again, in this augmented reality, not real, but it still gives you a sense that it's real because you can incorporate your own self into it as well. So just wanted to break that down in case anybody wanted to know the difference between the two. But I've been seeing this over the years. I mean, I've talked about AI. I've definitely talked about AR filters and AR, that just whole experience between beauty and consumers and audiences and all that good stuff. But something that was really interesting about their report that they put out was essentially saying the new currency driving business decisions and shaping customer experiences are all in this data space, essentially. And it highlights the significance of data-driven personalization strategies that result in an increase in return on investment for brands and retailers. So as we can see, this is really where the industry is going, because brands are saying to themselves, how can we make it easier for people to actually, come back to us, right? Obviously, when people love certain products, or they're able to get a particular routine or whatnot, that might get them excited about our products and our brand. But who's to say they're going to be a returning customer, right? You never really fully know. But now they're saying, hey, everything is going to be data driven for the most part. And now this is actually going to allow things to be really easy for us to then, put out certain marketing initiatives, or again, figure out how we bundle our products, or figuring out how we can do certain things to make it easier so that people don't have to do too much heavy lifting, which can sometimes be a good thing. But, again, there's negative and positives to all things. But from a brand perspective, this is what brands want. They want to, they're looking for a way to now essentially quantify what are the odds that this individual is going to come back? How do we make it an amazing experience from beginning to end so that they're excited about coming back? And so I thought that was really interesting about just this whole idea of where the industry particularly is going. But then also, we've got tech solutions provider Perfect Corp, which I've definitely talked about in the past, which has placed generative AI at the heart of its technology predictions for 2024. Generative AI is the type of artificial intelligence technology that can produce various types of content, such as text, image and audio synthetic data. Again, they also believe that embracing this technology and actually introduces a new way to connect and interact with consumers, which will essentially be this, the things that brands are going to have to do to drive growth for their brand for 2024. And the CEO and the founder of Perfect Core, Alex Chang, said the possibilities for generative AI are limitless. These advanced technologies create an easier, more fulfilled customer journey that drives revenue for brands and propels a growth cycle rooted in innovation. So overall, I definitely 1,000% see that being the way things are going. Just as, we're seeing so much of how technology and AI and AR, anything, have been integrated into our lives, sometimes without even us even realizing it. But I 1,000% see more brands tapping into AI. Now, do I think that they're going to make it they're going to make it super obvious. Probably not, because I still think there's a big, and I guess it will depend on the brand and it'll depend on their audience and their community. I still think there's a lot of people that are super questionable about anything that deals with like tech and AI and AR. However, people do love to consume things and people do love to shop. So I think even though they have those skepticisms or they have those thoughts, another part of them is thinking, well, what's going to just make my life easier as a consumer and a customer? Because if I want to buy something, I want to buy something. Who's the brand that's going to make it easy for me, right? You know, you looked at back in the day when like ads, and ads are still a thing, but now more than ever, like, you know, slowly but surely, everyone's just trying to find different ways that they can go ahead and advertise. But back in the day when Facebook ads or Meta ads were the trick of the trade, or the things that, you know, the things that people actually needed to put their brand into the next level, it's like you've got to be doing more than just doing ads now. And I've even seen, I've definitely talked about this in the past, how even Google itself has essentially, again, partnered with Perfect Core to put out AR, essentially try-on filters for people when they're on their own browser before, again, they even go to the brand website. So brands will, again, integrate themselves into Google and the shop and all that good stuff. But now people are able to actually go shop before I even hit the brand website. So again, we're making things easier for consumers, because we know at the end of the day, if you can make a consumer's life easier, if you can be the solution instead of the problem, people are going to buy from you just off rip. And if you can use data, if you can use AI to do that, that's obviously going to put you into different stratosphere. But again, the brands that are not super duper obvious about it, I think are the ones that are definitely going to get people's attention. I think the brands that are too, you know, hey, we're heavily using tech, and hey, we're heavily using AI and whatnot, I think are still kind of creeping people out a little bit. But then you have certain situations with like K18 being acquired by Unilever, and we know heavily that K18 and what they do in creating biotech and their, you know, ingredients and certain things like that, that's allowed them to put them into a different stratosphere, particularly within the hair care space. So I don't know. I think it's all different. I think it will depend on your audience. I think it depends on your approach. But I can definitely see that being a trend for 2024 and beyond, because as we can see, AI and anything data or tech-based or anything that's in a kind of different reality is kind of where things are slowly but surely going. Another trend that I thought was really interesting, which was all about hormonal skincare. So essentially, tailored skincare, hormonal skincare trends are expected to align as women learn more about their bodies and harness their hormonal cycles, adapting their skin care routines accordingly, which I 1,000% agree with, especially because as we've been seeing this upward trend of wellness kind of taking over, and people saying, well, yes, we've got products that work topically, but if I'm putting thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars of skincare products on my face, and I'm still not seeing certain results, again, whatever is kind of going on inside of you will come out. So that's kind of also what's going on as well, too. I think, again, the wellness boom has definitely taken off. It's always kind of been there, but it definitely had a spotlight, you know, post-pandemic or after 2020, when people were saying, well, I have all this time and I'm not going to the office anymore, and I'm not spending hours and hours on a screen anymore, or I now get to eat at home more and I'm not commuting as much and I could take my time with things. All of that, they start to look at themselves and say, well, maybe I don't need to rush to do my skincare routine anymore. Maybe I don't need to rush to do this. Am I eating enough? Am I eating the right things? Am I working out? Am I doing Pilates? Am I doing, you know, HIIT? Am I, you know, what am I ingesting? Am I doing supplements? Am I getting probiotics? Like, I think that as a whole has definitely been the way that the industry has been going. And you've been seeing a lot of brands launch wellness, you know, branches of their brands as well, too, that used to just, you know, specifically focus on makeup. It's kind of like when skincare came out and skincare was the big boom. We saw a lot of brands shift to having a skincare arm. We're kind of seeing that in the wellness arm as well, too. So you're going to see a lot of brands, whether brands are just coming out the woodwork and launching supplements or launching edible skincare or whatever, you're seeing a lot of brands who will create now an arm of their business that falls in the line of a different sector than what they originally came out with. So whether it's body care, whether it's supplements, whether it's collagen, whether it is just anything that is different and in that wellness space, you're going to see brands just doing more of that. And again, as this article was saying from the industry, talking about how just women as a whole are really saying to themselves, we're taking a minute, we're taking a beat, we're not drinking as much, we're, you know, making sure we're getting the right amount of meals that we get throughout the day, we're also eating properly. all of that obviously affects your skin as a whole. And so with that, we're also going to make decisions with our skin as well too. And so overall, hormonal skincare, I definitely see that being for sure a trend for 2024, and definitely beyond, just the way that everything is going in the grand scheme of just women taking a lot more agency over themselves and not feeling so rushed or committed to the hustle anymore, as we've slowly but surely seen that hustle culture, that girl boss culture has definitely died for women slowly but surely. And women are taking, the soft life, or they're, taking on less things and prioritizing rest. And so with all of that comes them making those decisions with their skincare as well too. I thought something was also really interesting as well, that they also spoke about menopausal skin, or, specifically skincare that, specifically is garnered or geared to women who are in menopause. I thought that was actually interesting as well too, because it all falls on line of health and hormones and all that good stuff. But overall, this hormonal skincare is all about referring to the hormonal changes that your skin goes through. And as women, as we know, we got our period every month for the most of us. For some of us that don't, we still go through different changes with our body, especially as we get older. And so as you get older, your hormones change. And one thing about me and my hormones, when I am going through it, I am going through it. Like, I literally have to set myself up so that during the moments of my hormones acting crazy or making me feel a certain way, I've actually got to reschedule my life and change what it is that I'm doing, right down from my diet to, how often I'm in front of a computer screen, sometimes certain people I see, to make sure that I'm not, doing too much that are going to activate my hormones. And even with skincare as well too, as we all know, for the majority of us, if we're close to our period, we might start breaking out more, we might start eating a certain way. And so all those things affect your skin as a whole and can essentially affect your skincare routine. So I think brands that are just coming out here and saying, hey, these are all things that happen. Like, why are we sitting here and ignoring the fact that we, for the majority of us, not all of us, but for the majority of us, we're going through different things. We're fluctuating all the time in different ways, whether it's the universe, whether it is naturally, our period, whether it is just the way we're in certain environments. All those things matter. So why are we not taking that approach with our skincare as well too? And so I love to see the brands that are out here doing that. I'm really, really excited to see what more of the hormonal skincare kind of looks like for people, because I 1,000% see that being a focus. I'll also be interested to see the brands who have been solidified as a skincare brand or even a makeup brand now venture off into something specific. Or I would be really interested to see a brand like AG1 come out and be very specific about what it is that they're doing. Even though AG1 is definitely more supplements and powders and that edible stuff, and more so of that kind of wellness take. And it's not really too beauty focused, but it's definitely more athletic focused and being the better version of you focused. It would be interesting to see even them maybe tap into it as well. So shout out to everybody involved and, everybody that's out here just wanting to change the industry in a different way, or just wanting to go with where the industry is going. Because if you've been peeping it for the last 2 or 3 years, that's kind of where things have been going with the skincare industry. People, and particularly just the beauty industry as a whole, people are not wanting quick fixes anymore. They want to take changes into their own hands, and they want to do the work. And then they actually, then want to say, okay, I've done this, and so on and so forth. Closing out just some trends, of course, that I just read about for 2024. Edible skincare, which again falls in line kind of with hormonal skincare or just wellness as a whole. So there's going to be a lot of beauty from within. So in conjunction with topical treatments, getting the right nutrients are going to be obviously important. Vitamins, minerals, even just water and supplements. All that stuff is going to be really, really important and definitely a focus for 2024. Also skin minimalism or skinimalism, which they always will say that will always be the focus. And I don't really feel like this is a trend for 2024, because this has been a trend for the last 2 years. Again, after 2020, where people were not having to necessarily spend an arm and a leg on skincare anymore. Or if they were, it's we know these products are actually going to do what we need them to do. And no more of the 10-step routine, no more of the 20-step routine, no more of spending so much time on your skincare. It's like less is more. What can we do to take skincare to a lot simpler? Because having to put on 10 products on your face or 15 products on your face is a lot. And to do that both AM and PM, I don't know about y'all, but I don't have the time. Like, I literally do not have the time for any of that. Like, again, my normal routine outside of putting makeup on, it's like 3 or 4 products and we're out. Like, it literally does not need to be more than that. But slowly but surely, we've been just seeing people just say to themselves, like, if I could just have one product that gets it done for me, that's also the focus as well too. So Skinmalism took off 2023. I even think it took off again after 2020 just as a whole, that 2021, 2022 for sure. But people just wanting a simplistic approach to skincare as a whole. Also not wanting to, look like they have 80 million products on their face. I think that's also been a focus as well too, especially last year when we saw clean girl makeup take off. We just saw brands wanting to repackage how, just people were essentially treating beauty and not wanting to do too much. So things like tinted sunscreens or tinted moisturizers or multi-purpose products were definitely taking off as well because people just don't want to own too many products anymore. I think everyone's just kind of tired of it. Again, just following up with these last couple trends, growth factor technology. So same deal, all about essentially, companies who are now producing products and using ingredients that are kind of already within our body already. So hyaluronic acid, as we know, is definitely not a trend or a new product, but hyaluronic acid is something that we actually have in our body. So brands putting hyaluronic acid into their products 5 years ago, 10 years ago was definitely something innovative because it just wasn't something that was happening, right? The most that you would hear about hyaluronic acid being in the body or, something that you could use topically was through things like fillers or Botox, I believe. So it all kind of falls into that line. But now you're actually seeing brands who are coming out with specific products where either the tech or its particular ingredient, or when I say the tech, they have essentially like created this new ingredient or again taken a particular part of a function of your body and actually replicated that and put that into an actual skincare product so that when that now product goes onto your skin, I don't want to use the word synergy, but it almost feels like it is now working with your skin instead of taking anything away from it. Because again, if you're applying products topically, typically those products will just sit on your skin. But if you're now using ingredients or you have now said to yourself, okay, we're going to do things differently and we're going to come out with products that now actually are that mirror or mimic certain already ingredients or certain things that are already within us, right? Then it's like the perfect marriage of this product. And it also will just make sense to you as a consumer to say, well, if I already have this in my body, then maybe I need to make sure that I'm also putting this topically as well so that everything is working in tandem with each other. And so 1,000% definitely see that coming up for 2024. Skin barrier health, as we know, is definitely taking off for 2024. I think as a whole, we saw that in 2023 when pretty much every brand came out with a product that had ceramides in it. Like ceramides was the ingredient for 2023 because when I tell you, I saw so many brands come out with products with ceramides in it, or they came out with products that just anything has to do with skin barrier health. Brands were coming out with moisturizers. They were coming out with serums. They were coming out with cleansers. They came out with so many different things. But as a whole, it just makes sense because, again, when you're really having a conversation about your skin, yes, you could have a product that targets your acne or that targets your oiliness or targets your dryness. But typically when we're just going through anything in our skin, and I've said this for a while, it's like, even though I have pretty oily skin or acne prone skin, if our skin is acting that way literally all the time, it's because something's off, right? Something is actually off with our skin because typically we should all really have normal skin, meaning it shouldn't be super dry. It shouldn't be super oily. Even combo is a little bit interesting as well too. And I've worked with different brands, and I've obviously talked about different products as well too. So when we have different conversations about combination skin or oily skin or dry skin, it usually means that something's up with the skin as a whole. And people don't realize that when they're out here experimenting with products and they're putting 10 to 15 products on their face, that you're actually ruining your skin barrier. And that's why it cannot be as healthy as it needs to be, which is why you even applying all these products onto your skin are actually damaging your skin long term. Sure, they might be giving you the look and the feel of what you want in the moment, but when we're having a conversation about your skin acting out or you breaking out or getting a lot more drier, or again, just certain things that happen to your skin, is because your skin barrier is messed up and it needs some love and needs some help. So you've been definitely probably even seeing a lot of brands that will claim that their products are really great for sensitive skin as well too, because again, if your barrier is damaged, you'll notice that your skin is a lot more sensitive than it needs to be. So you probably saw a lot of brands, especially last year, come out with a lot of products that were, quote unquote, made for all skin types, including sensitive skin types. And so we're just seeing that across the board, with skin barrier being the most important thing for everybody. And I totally, again, see more brands actually coming out with particular products about that, which actually ties in perfectly to my last topic, which is all about the INKEY list launching there, which is actually really interesting because this is now combining two of these 2024 trends. And shout out to INKEY list for just really being on it. They actually launched a new moisturizer called the Bioactive Ceramide Repairing and Plumping Moisturizer. It's $20. They kicked off the new year with this huge campaign, which I actually really loved, because one thing about the INKEY list that was always really interesting to me, even when I worked at Decium, I thought it was really interesting that they both looked very similar. And I have a feeling it's because the founders either maybe, I don't think they came from Decium. I don't think that's not what it was, but maybe they just were running in the same circles, because I always thought that was really interesting that the Decium was really affordable. And when we were selling it, we'd always have people that would come in and compare us between the INKEY list. But I always thought, again, the INKEY list has always been super affordable. So they really kind of blew up almost simultaneously. I think Decium was a little bit different because they really leaned into things being very clinical and things being very scientific. Whereas the INKEY list, I feel like they very much leaned into affordability in skincare, which is kind of even puts them on the same track of like a Cetaphil or CeraVe for me. That's what I've always just kind of seen with the brand. But with this new product launch, with this new direction of where the INKEY list is, I even just, if you go on their social media, you can see that things just look different. Things are cooler. Things are more aesthetically pleasing. It gives more of a chic vibe. And not to say that their products, weren't doing all that, but the INKEY list always just kind of feels like it is a brand made for like Gen Z, or it's a brand that feels very drugstore-esque, but they use ingredients that you necessarily wouldn't be able to necessarily find these products at the drugstore. Like, they have so many products, and everything that they do, again, is pretty affordable. So again, you have a lot of Gen Z people will love their products, even people that are older as well too. But it seems with this new campaign, this new direction, this new look, that they are now speaking to not necessarily that Gen Z crowd, but definitely a little bit older, that understands that you actually need to take care of your skin, and that means actually repairing your skin barrier. And that also now puts you into a new space of looking at your skin a little bit differently as well too, where we have that bioactive ceramide element of them essentially using, data and something new and something different that speaks to that. And like I said, 2024 is going to be the year that you see a lot of brands launching a product and the ingredient or the name has some sort of bio in it. You're going to see a ton of that. That's just where I see it going, especially going back to what I said about things being very, data and AI driven and AR driven. You're definitely going to see a lot of that. But overall, it just seems that they're going in a different direction, and I love to see it because it just feels cooler. Like, the INKEY list to me has never felt cool. They've always just felt like, I got to use these products because they work. But I think as a brand, as you consistently are evolving, I'm not necessarily saying you have to pivot away from what's always worked for you, but you have to, in a sense, reinvent yourself at least every 3 years or every 5 years or sometimes even 10 years, so that people don't get tired of feeling like, okay, this is just a brand, it's here, whatever. Like, you never want to ever feel like that's what the case is. And so the INKEY list kind of moving in this direction, putting out their biggest campaign, I think it's super dope and super cool. I also want to talk about a little bit about their different ways that they actually decided to put this together. So they said the brand launched in 2018 in the UK and 2019 in the US. It is targeting 10 million in sales for the new moisturizer. The INKEY list declined to comment on revenue, interesting, but industry sources linked to the brand predicted that its 2023 revenue would hit over 100 million, which I 1000% believe, just because, again, they're absolutely killing it. And this new moisturizer as well. So I just want to talk a little bit about that moisturizer as well before I go into the specifics. And so this new product is called their Bioactive Ceramide Repairing and Plumping Moisturizer. They claim that it's clinically proven to firm, plump, and visibly lift in 28 days. They said it helps strengthen the skin barrier and provide 24-hour hydration. The bioactive ceramides deliver up to 4 times visible fine line and wrinkle reduction. And so again, I think this is really interesting as well too, because something that I didn't actually talk about previously, but I'll bring it back. One of the trends for 2024 is 1000% going to be more brands talking about people, women, just as a whole, after 30, after 40. And this really falls in line with, again, even though the INKEY list's main customer base is Gen Z from what I see and just who they consistently market to, they understand that they do have a customer base and an audience base that are over that. Right? So even here, I'm on their Instagram, I'm looking at the promotional graphics, I'm looking at the carousel, and they're actually specifically speaking to under 40, age 30 to 40, and age 40 plus, which I think is super interesting because, again, they have never really gone out of their way to say, hey, we're a brand that targets this particular group. I think for them, like I said, from the jump, they only just cared about offering great products at an affordable price. They were never interested in necessarily playing favorites or targeting a specific group. Obviously, because their products are affordable and you can get them at Sephora and you can get them at the drugstore, Gen Z and Gen Alpha are also there. So they're going to gravitate to those products right off rip. And so I also think that's who they've been marketing to because that's just who has gravitated towards their product. But I think now they're saying to themselves, well, hey, we have a customer base and an audience that is in this 30 to 40 plus range. So let's actually create something for them specifically. And also, this is just where the industry is going as well, too, where you're going to see brands who either new brands that come up or brands that have been around for years speak to this group, this, 30 to 40, 40 plus group, and really kind of changing the narrative of anti-aging skincare and what that looks like, and not looking at it as a negative, but looking at it as something to be celebrated. Like, hey, getting older and aging is a privilege, but also making sure that you're taking care of your skin so that necessarily you don't visibly look like you're, quote unquote aging, which I don't think there's anything wrong with having that look. I think fine lines and wrinkles and all that good stuff. It's a sign that you've been around. You know what I mean? It's a sign that you have some wisdom on you. But as a brand selling skincare, as a brand that obviously wants to take some of your money, they understand as well too that they have to sell this look of smooth, almost perfect skin. And so that's still what's going to be the focus. But the ceramides part of it is really interesting because, yes, ceramides have been very popular, but there is this conversation that is now about not necessarily you looking like you're 20 years old anymore, you looking like you're a baby, but what can you do to just take care of the skin on your face? Like, what can you do to have better skin health, right? Because as much as we are taking care of our bodies now and doing things a lot differently, what are you actually doing for the health of your skin? Are you just slapping products on your skin, or are the products that we're using over time actually helping the health of our skin? And I think that was definitely a trend last year for sure. And definitely, like I said, post 2020, but a brand like the INKEY list coming out, doing this campaign, creating a product that's very specific to that. And even moisturizer as a whole, like moisturizer is really interesting because everyone's got to moisturize, right? For the most part, whether you're using oils, creams, emulsions, whatever that might be. But them coming out the gate, coming out with a moisturizer that, again, specifically speaks to this group and then obviously targets skin health. And then, of course, now we're adding in that data piece as well, too, where it's a bioactive ceramide. I think that's also really interesting and just shows you that the INKEY list has always just been, I don't want to say 10 steps ahead, but they have just always been about wanting to be a brand that is different than other brands for the most part. And they've launched a gazillion of different products over these years about saying, hey, we want to do things a little bit differently. Like, sure, you could find products at another brand like Decium, or sure, you could find another product at Cetaphil or CeraVe, but we want to be different. And I can just see that in the marketing. I can just see that with the products that they're launching as well, too. And so something that was also really interesting as well, the co-founder of the INKEY list, Mark Curry, he states that ceramides have been hot for a while, and likewise, skin barrier is an increasing term in people's skincare vocabularies for all the right reasons. And then he also speaks about, again, we have been quite biased towards lightweight types of moisturizers. We've never put out a real luxurious velvety cream such as this, and we are asked for it quite often, which I also think is really interesting altogether, because again, this goes back to what I said. When you create amazing things and people love your brand and they love their products, like, they're gonna start asking for things. They are going to start asking for things. And so I just think as a whole, this just makes sense with everything that they are doing. And they also speak to the clinical tests that they did for this product as well, which were that 100% of users saw an improvement in 6 signs of aging with this, which I thought was great. And I love that the INKEY list always does that. They always try to make everything very community-based, very survey-based, and saying, hey, these are the things that people actually want. We've tested them. We've tried them. And essentially here it is. I think actually when I went on their Instagram and checked out their tag section, there was a lovely lady, I don't remember her name, but she was talking about how she had been testing this product for months. And so again, it speaks to their integrity as a brand. It speaks to how much they actually care about their community, and they want to actually make sure that they're getting all these things done right. And they actually have a community out there that can actually speak to those things as well too. So I think that's super dope. And just to close out, the brand is approaching anti-aging delicately, stated Colette Laxton, who is I'm just looking here who Miss Colette is. Oh, beautiful. She's the co-founder of the INKEY list as well. So Colette, founder of the INKEY list, she says, I'm 37. I don't consider myself in the anti-aging category, but my skin's starting to tell me otherwise. It's starting to change, and I'm going to need more from my skin. Do I want to be starting to use anti-aging products? No, but I want something that's going to work harder for me. And again, they speak to their target customer for the moisturizer is someone in the exact same position, which again was everything that I was speaking about, which is, you're going to have that group. And you even have the co-founder saying, I'm 37 and this is exactly how I feel. And so one thing I will say, and one thing I'm sure the INKEY list knows as well too, is that their customer base, although it might be Gen Z, and I'm sure there's definitely millennials in there as well too. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a lot millennials, but they heavily market to Gen Z. So that's what I'm going off by. One thing that I've always respected about just Gen Zs as a whole, and I like I said, I think the INKEY list knows this, which is Gen Z gives a shit about the fact that they're going to get older and they're not going to be in their 20s anymore. And so the beautiful thing about Gen Z or even Gen Alpha is they understand that I'm not going to be young forever. So sure, I can, mess around, I can concoct, I can put 15 to 20 products on my face and call it a day, but what am I actually doing that's going to take care of my skin long term / what am I going to do when I do hit that 30 mark, or I do hit 35, or I do hit 40, or I do hit 45 or 50? What am I doing to actually take care of my skin, and how can I take care of my skin? And we've been seeing, there's been controversy with, the Gen Z kids only, using Drunk Elephant. And it's like, you're 19 years old. What are you using Drunk Elephant for, considering the price point? But that is what people have been using / that's what makes people excited. I mean, because again, Drunk Elephant doesn't really get in the conversation too much. They were a hit almost, I think, 5 or 6, maybe 7 years ago, maybe even before that. But they have not really been in the skincare community zeitgeist for a while. So how does Drunk Elephant even get to the kids? And it's because they love the colorful, cool packaging, which is what attracted all of us to Drunk Elephant in the very beginning. And, the fact that their products were cool and innovative, but they've always been overpriced. But it's also like, how are the kids affording it? Or how are the 19 and 20-year-olds affording Drunk Elephant like that? So I thought that was really interesting as a whole. But what I want to say is that group, that audience, that community, that are in their 20s, they are aware that they're not going to be 20s. They're not going to be in their 20s, and they're not going to be 20 forever. So they're going to do what they can now to take care of their skin slowly but surely, or again, understand that they at least want to have options. So by the time they're in their 30s, by the time they're in their 40s and 50s and 60s and plus, that they actually have products that actually work for them. And they're actually making sure that their skin isn't completely tarnished. Because again, these Gen Z, Gen Alpha kids have millennial parents for the most part. And a lot of them are also seeing how they look as well too. So it's kind of like a interesting cautionary tale slash, we're just a lot more informed because social media and the internet is here, and everybody and everywhere has this information on products and ingredients and whatnot. So the consumer today is a lot more informed than they were, like I said, 10, 15 years ago. And those consumers, like I said, are here, right? They're 19, they're 20, they're 21, they're 25. And so they are very much hip to the square. They very much understand what's going on. And so I can totally see just even that group wanting to pick up a moisturizer like this altogether, because they're aware that I want to take care of my skin. I want to make sure that, by the time I'm in my 30s or my 40s, that my skin isn't completely damaged and that everything is, for the most part, irreversible because we lose collagen after we hit 25. But I want to take care of my skin now. And so with that, with even them again, I want to say, speaking to two different markets, that under 30, that 30 to 40, or three different markets, that under 30, you've got 30 to 40 and 40 plus. I think it's super smart for them to go ahead and do that. I'll be very excited to see more products kind of come out into this new vibe of the INKEY list, but definitely check it out. Like, I love the branding. Like, they incorporated like this almost like pukey green neon. It kind of similar to a brand color of mine as well, but I love it. I think it's innovative. I think it's cool. I think they're adding their touch and their cool spin, but also it's all rooted in, being innovative at the exact same time. And it shows that they're very much hip to the square. And brands like Deciem, for example, which have always kind of been on the pulse. The one thing that I haven't really been that all excited about with Deciem is that it never really feels like they've evolved. It just looks like they're creating like different iterations of best-selling products that they already have, or the products that they do come out with are just not that enticing enough, because if you already have your routine, you have your routine. And so I know they had gotten rid of a bunch of brands, I believe last year or the year before, but they've kind of been in the shadows a little bit about products, even though they still create products that are cool and innovative and whatnot. But I think the INKEY list, with this new direction, with this new look, with this new campaign, I think it's going to put them into a different stratosphere, and it's going to let people see them as a brand that is innovative and is willing to put things out. And I think people have always just known that about them, but now they're getting to experiment and do things differently, and now speak to this, 30 to 40 plus market, which, like I said, is definitely going to be a trend for 2024, where brands are just going to say to themselves, listen, we are, we get it. We've got a Gen Z base, and that's cool and that's awesome. But now we want to speak to our millennial base, who pretty much has been holding us down from the jump. And so it's kind of like, if you don't see the play, if you're not paying attention to it, these brands will plan for almost 3 years out. So I'm sure the INKEY list knows what the trajectory of their brand is going to look like 3 years from now, or maybe 5 years from now. But I'll be really interested to see more products that they'll launch in this space, that is the beautiful marriage between talking to, quote unquote anti-aging, but having a new different spin on it, and accepting the fact that we are going to get older, but also like, I'm not there yet. So what can I do to take care of my skin? And so shout out to the INKEY list. Shout out to all brands involved. Shout out to Dame for just being innovative as well too. Again, these are the things that really fuel me when it comes to the beauty industry. Like, the beauty industry can sometimes be very redundant, and it seems to favor individuals that just kind of do the same thing over and over again. But I just love when brands do innovative things. I love when, data comes out. I love when insights come out. I love when people do reporting, because it also then just speaks to where the industry is going. So if you're just not paying attention, you need to start paying attention, especially if you have a beauty brand yourself or are looking to launch a beauty brand for 2024. So without further ado, y'all, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of What's New in Beauty. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, leaving reviews, ratings. I'm just so grateful for y'all. And excuse my manners as well too. Happy New Year. Happy 2024. And I cannot wait to catch you guys in the next episode.